What's up, people? Welcome back to T's Time. I'm TJ. Thank you for tuning in. This is a continuation from when I was doing an oil change on the 2001 Camry. Today we're going to do a transmission, filter, and fluid change on a 2001 Camry, a CE 2.2, a 4-cylinder. This is a transmission pan. That is the drain right there, that Allen key. I got to find the Allen head big enough for that to remove that. So we're going to drain, and then we're going to remove all those 10 millimeters going around the pan to drop it down to expose our filter. Change that out with the gasket, and it looks like somebody used some RTV maybe in there, or that's just grime built up. I don't know, but we're gonna find out. I'm gonna get a pan, I'm gonna get it under here, I'm gonna get it drained, and then you fill through your transmission dipstick hole. So the capacity isn't the largest on these. I believe it's only like a couple quarts, but we shall find out. But yeah, let me get some tools, get stuff situated, and we'll try to make this as quick as possible. All right, so I got number 10 Allen to remove the drain plug, and then a 10 millimeter to get all those bolts off of the pan. All right, so I'm using a small little impact on a 1/4-inch drive. Do this at your own risk. It's probably good practice to break them loose by hand first, just so you don't snap anything. But I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Like so, and just I'm going slow. I'm not like straight hitting the button, so it goes. Magnet pan for all your bolts, so you don't lose any. And then, time to make a mess. Gotta get this pan off. So I'm gonna pry. I have front bolts on still, but I don't have just slowly like to find like a fixed object, and you have a pry tool. There you go. So you leave the front ones on, so you could do that and let that drip. Take off these front ones. And then remove the gasket material. And razor, if you do use a razor, you kind of want to keep it straight. You don't want to dig into it. But this is a plastic blade. They wear out quick, but for this, it probably should be fine. It should suffice. But like with this, you just want it as clean as possible, as flat as possible before you put the new gasket and stuff on. So just take your time. All right, so that's off. I scraped off the gasket. I'm gonna go through a brake clean and go around the surface, make sure it's all clean. You want it as clean as possible. You don't want any foreign debris to be inside the pan when you fully assemble everything. So I'm gonna do that. Then I'm gonna take the pan out. I'm gonna clean that inside, get all that out. There should be a magnet somewhere in there. Keep that cleaned off. Install the new pan filter. Install the pan. But and the pan gasket, of course. But let me get this cleaned up and we'll get this going. All right, and this is the pan. These are the magnets right there. Just make sure you get those cleaned up, and remember where they are. I don't know about interference, but they're just in there. The pan is still, but you just want to go through. It's a good time to check to see if there's like any crazy shavings or big chunks. Doesn't appear to be anything. That's just pan material that I was scraping off in there, but it looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, get all this old like gasket material off, just like we did with the bottom. So the bottom is ready to go. I just got to clean this out. So let me do that and we shall be back. All right, and to put in the new filter, it's 3 10mm bolts, 1, 2, and 3. Unbolt the old one and install the new ones. And torque specs on these, I believe, are about like 18 inch-pounds, if I believe, for those 10mm. So just be mindful of that. Do not over torque these. Do not snap a bolt off. It's up to you. Double check your specs for your vehicle. Look them up. If you're not sure, don't guess. And yeah, just make sure it's done right. But right now we're just gonna remove those and get this new filter in. And you will have fluid come out. On the back, there's like a little clip. Move those out the way. You see this little bracket piece that holds those wires. Remove that, get those wires out the way before you unloose or untighten, and drop that out so you don't put any strain on those wires. This one seems a little funky. I don't know if it was done before. RTV says maybe, or if they put this in the wrong spot. If there's different lengths, be mindful of the length of the bolt and where it came from. And I'm not using any power tools just because I don't want transmission fluid all over them. These are easier to clean with some brake fluid or some brake clean, part or greaser, or whatever you use. As you can see, we got different lengths. So the short one is towards the back so far. I wouldn't trust these just because this one looked like it wasn't in the right spot. So I'm gonna go in slow by hand with these, but just remember a placement of them where they came out. And there goes that extra fluid, of course. That's how it usually goes. All right, and this is the pan. I tried putting it in the trunk to keep leaves out of it. They're falling. But the gaskets that I have here, it has smaller holes where these tabs are to hold the bolt in to make it easier to get this in and get all the bolts lined up. So it keeps it in place. Also wipe this one more. So you got your little magnets. Cool. The deeper side is in the front. So we're gonna take this 10mm. You're just gonna get these corners started. Right. So the pan is on. That's cool. It's tight. I got everything torqued to spec, or the spec that I'm using, so we're good there. Right now I'm going to show you the differential right here, how to drain that. Also, that's the drain plug right there. It's another 10 Allen key, and then up top there is the drain bolt right here. or the fill is right there, and that's the drain. So drain, fill. So this is how you fill and check it. Like, I don't know if this has ever been done, but like the transmission part is done. Let's do our little differential. And then to fill that, you'll need like some kind of hose, funnel, something to squirt whatever you need in there, because you can't really get a bottle in there without making like a crazy mess, or even like some kind of flexible tube from up top. But you fill that until it drains out. Right now I'm just going to show you how to drain. I don't have the stuff I need to fill it, but I'm gonna get everything drained right now, so that way when I come back I just have to fill. And it's hard to see, so I'm not going to record breaking it loose, but I'll show you how to drain it. It just shows you where the locations are. So you unloosen those, untighten them, remove those, remove the fill first, because if you can't get the fill off, you don't want to drain it because you won't be able to get fluids back in. So always start with the fill hole. All right, so I'm back to fill the differential. I have this to fill the differential. You don't need something like this. You could just get like a hose like so, just so you could reach up there and squirt whatever you need into it. But this is nice because you just fill up the tube and then you just press it in. So the differential is supposed to hold like 1.6 quarts. So I'm gonna overfill it because like when it's upside down, gravity, it's gonna be a little short. So I'm gonna put probably about like, how much does this hold? We'll probably do a couple rounds. This holds like a quart and a half, but we're gonna get it filled with this using Dex 3 transmission fluid. It was dark when I took it out, so like that's probably never been replaced. So we're gonna get this caught up, get that in, filled, and you fill until it starts to like leak out. It's gonna be hard to try to get like the camera down there to get that angle, but for that fill hole, just make sure your drain plug is tight, and fill until like it starts to ooze out of that hole, and then just put your plug back in, and that is it. That's done. All right, so that's in 10 millimeter at the bottom for the drain plug. I used a 6.11/16 3/8 drive for the top, and used like a wrench to get more leverage on it. The top is tight, so you don't want to round that, and just get some leverage, get a good socket, get a good bite on it before you try to take that off. You will round that, and you won't be able to fill. So also make sure you take off the fill first before the drain. So that's done. The transmission is done. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add our transmission fluid to the transmission itself, and I'm gonna see if I could get to it, because usually what I do, I disconnect the feed and the return on the transmission, and I cycle the transmission through the gears to get all the old crud off. But you don't want that to go empty. Like, I keep it full, but that's how I cycle through to get like the old transmission fluid out of the converter. So let me see if I could do that. We're gonna get this going, get this filled. I believe it's total supposed to hold is 2.6 quarts, but then, you know, there's still fluid in the converter and stuff like that. So just add a little bit and check your fluid. You don't want to overfill it, so go slow. It's easier to add than to remove. If you do need to remove, I do use like a little siphon pump where I stick the hose down the fill tube and suck out what I need to suck out to get the level just right. But yeah, let's get that transmission filled. All right, so check your fluid, make sure you have it filled. Right now I'm going to remove, there's a under tray, it's some 10 millimeter bolts. We're going to remove that to gain access to the bottom of where the transmission cooler lines go in. I believe, if you could follow the routing, I believe this is the feed. So this is the feed where it goes in, so, or into the, into the transmission, I believe, and then this is, no, this goes into the transmission, and this I believe comes out, but we're gonna see. Best thing to do to find that out, especially if you have two people, have somebody turn the vehicle on, and you can see like the way it flows when you have the lines disconnected, and then you could just hook up a hose going into like actually like a full gallon jug of transmission fluid. Just make sure you use clean tubing and stuff like that. You want to add any contaminants into it, but that's a good way. And then use a clear hose also, so you can see the color change as it's being pumped out. So once you see that clear fluid, then it's done, and then you don't have to do like that fill, dry for a little bit, drain, fill thing. That's what I do. I've been doing that for years, and I haven't had an issue yet. It probably does cause a little stress to the transmission. Do not like drive or just being in park and just shifting through the gears to get that to pump, to get the transmission to pump its fluids through. But yeah, do this at your own risk. Let me throw that in. This is you know, take responsibility for what you do. But let's get those removed to gain access to the bottom hose. It's just on with clamps. So I don't think they're like the highest pressure lines in the world, because they're just using the clamps. That would be a good indicator too, like if they're using like actually like hydraulic lines, that's your pressure line. Another one would be like your return. So this is why I'm going to remove the bottom, and then we can also get the fluid out of the transmission cooler also. So we're draining that too. So yeah. All right, so these are the bottom cooler line connections. So this hose right there, this hose right here, it's just little clamps. I might replace those with some actual screw tight type clamps, so like once I break them loose. So yeah, so think about that, or even replacing a hose. But this is more fluid that you're gonna about to be removed, so catch it with a pan. There is transmission fluid in this bottom tank. So yeah, and then also to fill or to drain your coolant, that's what that little petcock is for right there. So yeah. All right, and so once we figure out which way the transmission flows, which way like it comes out of the transmission, because you have your suction side, you're gonna put this on the cooler itself, the way that like if the fluid's coming out that hose from the transmission, connect that to the cooler, leave the other side disconnected. It could connect a hose to the other side of the cooler to catch all of that fluid that's going to be coming out of the transmission into a pan, and then use the other hose. You could connect the other hose to like a fresh bottle, or you could just kind of just keep turning the car on and off. You probably shouldn't, depending on if it's sucking fresh fluid. So you do need hoses. Make sure you have the right size hoses for what you need. I believe those might be 3/8 hose. I have to double check. I do have extra hose. All right, so this hose is the one that shoots out. So we're gonna put this back on. Tighten that clamp. We're gonna leave this off. I gotta find a hose to put on here, because this is the way it's gonna come in. I just want to make sure I flush out that cooler also. So I just gotta get some hose. And the darkness will become clear eventually. So continue with that process until you're pleased with the color that it is. It's getting a little lighter, a little drizzle. I'm gonna get like another gallon jug of transmission fluid and do that. But just continue that process, and then once that is done, go and check your level, and if need be, you could siphon out transmission fluid through the fill hole to get the level just right. But that's just kind of how you do like a little backyard like flush. It's nothing like crazy, as long as you keep the fluid level up. Have somebody in the passenger seat start it, put it in drive, let the fluid run through as you're pouring fluid into it, and just until like it gets the fluid gets a little clearer or more transparent. You don't want that dark color sludge in there. So you could probably just call it like at that. That's about 2 gallons ran through. That probably should be about the capacity. So you could probably just call it like at that. Like that's kind of like good enough. If you want to save money, just check your fluid level and make sure it's filled to the top. But yeah, so that's it. Transmission is done. The differential is done. Maintenance wise, we're pretty much caught up. I still have other fluids like power steering. It's kind of like the same concept. With that, you just need to know which way the flow of the fluid is, and you can use the same technique. Take all the old fluid out the reservoir and add fresh, and then just kind of keep an eye on the level and just circulate that through. Yeah, but we're getting there, so hopefully this helped. Good luck on the next adventure, and do not break anything. Peace, TJ.